That's particularly appropriate in our business model, and part of the reason for that is oftentimes we find customers will start with a project or a certain network service. They'll educate themselves as to how to use those networks, and then they'll find the uses that are appropriate across their business processes for how to expand those networks. So we might start on a project basis but end up with an enterprise. And a good example of that is a contract that we're negotiating right now, and we've actually initiated with the state of Michigan and Michigan State University, healthcare agencies and so on in the state of Michigan, where basically they want to launch multiple networks across economic development or healthcare IT or the student population at the various universities for their, and the farm extension services and agriculture. So all of those various networks need to be served with one private cloud, and we're doing that through virtualization. It's very important in that case that the data be segregated. Why? Because we have a data warehouse and all of the analytics functions that have to be applied across those various networks. So we have to identify issues that might arise in a healthcare IT exchange environment would be very similar to issues or trends that might arise in a agriculture a community in the rural areas and so on. So that's also a driver in our business model. Now, at an operational level, in a business process level, there are a lot of challenges that take place as you're evolving through that process, and we have all of those challenges in spades. You would price and sell very differently in a project-based environment than you will in an enterprise or even a virtual cloud environment, and your behaviors vis-a-vis the customer can also be different. So for instance, one of the behaviors we're evolving into that's enabling this transition to take place is certification of all our processes so the customer can co-create with us and they can build their own business services, yet be it in our cloud, because they're very creative, and we use their social production to enable them to be more effective. They have domain expertise that we may not have, as an example. So the certification process is making it easy for these customers to build as they're then migrating into these enterprises and their own enterprises. And we can talk about maybe some of the
I want to go down that path of around the operational challenges,
right,
and what you try to do to address those. Because it does sound like each of you is trying to make an effort to keep the code bases as close together as possible, and maybe even the same. So that aspect from a development point of view may not be the bigger challenge. It's all the other operational issues through the life cycle of selling and deploying and managing the relationships with your customers. So talk a little bit about how you're addressing some of those.
So,
okay, so in your case, you've got various alternatives in terms of how customers can deploy your solution. Are there operational issues that you have to contend with, though, as you're looking at those various kinds of deployment scenarios, on-premise versus on-demand?
Certainly, I mean, for any company who starts purely as an on-demand company providing a platform for doing application development in the cloud, and especially for a company like us, whose roots were in providing just a pure SaaS solution, a CRM solution, it was a big change for us. I mean, honestly, analysts like Forrester and Gartner did not take us seriously when we started telling them that, oh, now we are going to offer even an on-demand code base or an on-demand installable solution, because it certainly puts a different kind of pressure on the resources, applicability of the QA team, how we were testing the product. Several of the resources were now engaged in just building the whole installable and making sure that it runs properly and certify the database, certify the operating system. So that was an operational challenge that we undertook last year around September time frame. And we really created an offering that was launched successfully in March, and Gartners and Forrester recognized that, they liked what we were offering. And we have been able to basically make the teams very efficient now who can do that. But it is a change. It is a challenge if you are trying to do both on-demand and on-premise. And for you, things might have been a little easier because you moved from pure on-premise offering to a cloud-based offering, single code base, multi-tenancy, and for us it was difficult. So we learned that, and we efficiently transformed our company from pure on-demand to on-premise also.
Jim, was it easier for you?
Was
the grass really greener on your side?
I'm not sure. Since I wasn't on the other side, it's hard to know whether it was greener.
Yeah.
It sure seemed like a lot of hard work. But our issues came down to a couple of basic issues. First is the data, right? To do what we have to do for our customers, we require a lot of data. We have to have all the sales transactions. You have to know everything about the organization, to know everything about the products that you sell. We write a bunch of rules that say this is how you pay people based on the information, based on the products that come in and what the organization looks like and what the commission rates are, et cetera. So getting all of that data from the enterprise to us in an on-premise world is pretty standard ETL kind of stuff. You know, you can use Informatica or a bunch of other tools to do all that stuff. It's not easy, but it's well understood. It's well trodden ground. When you take that and you remove it from the enterprise, getting that data, those large amounts of data across the wire can be problematic. So we had to develop a bunch of standards to be able to do that easily and repeatably across hundreds of different customers with hundreds of thousands of people being paid by them. And that was a challenge for us. We ended up developing specific tools for our on-demand business that attached to our traditional on-premise product, which we had since virtualized, to provide instances for all these customers and their various development, UAT, and production instances in order to do that. And then that's how we addressed it, is by building a specific tool that handled the data importation and data cleansing and QA process in an easy way and a standard way for all of our customers. And then the second thing beyond that was all the security that goes around it, right? So I touched on it before in terms of following the safe harbor standards and the SAS 70 standards here in the United States, or comply, or basically following the rules that we set up, which need to be pretty strict. And making sure that we have chief information security officers who've gone through all the certification, and chief information security managers who've gone through all the certification, and following our own rules, which have to actually be tougher than most of our customers' rules, because we get investigated very thoroughly by some very tough, big organizations around the data security and how we're safeguarding the data that we have for our customers. And the combination of those two things were probably the most difficult things that we addressed from a sort of an operational perspective. There's a whole series of them, from a selling and a business, how we run our business and how we do our contracts and all of those other things.
Hold on that. We'll come back around another round on that.
Those are the technical ones.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's good. So Kim, what's another set of operational issues that you contended with, not only as you evolve, but as you try to balance the various kinds of deployments?